The message came at 11:27 p.m., glowing against the darkness of her small apartment. We changed all the locks. You don't have a home anymore. Let's see how brave you are now. The words blinked on the screen, cruel and final. For a long moment, Aria Lin just stared, her fingers trembling above the phone as if touching it might make it more real. The words didn't sting the way she expected. They froze her first, then cleared something inside her. She didn't reply, didn't cry, didn't plead. Instead, a quiet, dangerous calm settled in. Home wasn't a building, she thought. It was belonging, and they had never offered her that. Aria leaned back against the couch, the blue light washing over her face. She could almost hear her mother's voice, sharp, polished, and poisonous. Family is about loyalty, her mother would say, usually right after asking for money. Aria smiled bitterly. Loyalty had always been a one-way street in her house. Tonight they thought they had finally broken her. But they didn't realize that message wasn't an ending. It was evidence. The kind of evidence that could turn a daughter's pain into legal power. If you've ever been used, drained, and discarded by your own family, she whispered to herself, then you know this feeling. It wasn't revenge she wanted. It was justice. Measured, documented, and undeniable. For years she'd been the quiet one, the fixer, the problem solver. Now she would be something else. The storm they never saw coming. Her name was Aria Lin, 28 years old, a data analyst with a photographic memory. Numbers had always made sense to her. People, not so much. But tonight people would finally face her numbers. She had grown up in Portland, Oregon, in a neat white colonial house with blue shutters and a maple tree that bled red every autumn. From the sidewalk, the Lin family looked perfect. 2 smiling parents, 2 daughters, and a golden retriever in the yard. Inside, perfection was a script, and Aria was the stagehand who kept the lights running. Every smile was practiced, every gesture rehearsed. She learned early that love came with chores, and silence kept peace. Started small, as most traps do. Aria, hold the ladder. Aria, pass the hammer. Weekends were swallowed by house repairs, while her younger sister, Lila, painted her nails in the sun. You're so strong, their father would say, tousling her hair. Tougher than any son. Her mother would nod approvingly. Family helps family. Those words became the chains she didn't see forming. By 14, her hands were calloused, her back sore, and her spirit already learning to equate exhaustion with love. By 17, she didn't know how to say no. When her mother sighed, "Money's tight, sweetheart, could you cover the electric bill?" She said yes without thinking. Became routine, one bill then another. At 21, she was sending half her paycheck home while her sister posted photos from Rome. Art scholarship, her parents bragged. Aria smiled in every family photo, never letting on that she was the one making those dreams possible. She thought being dependable was the same as being loved. But love built on exploitation always cracks. She noticed it first in whispers, conversations that stopped when she entered the room. Her father avoiding her eyes. Her mother saying, "It's best if we keep things simple." Simple meant secret. The night she overheard them sealed everything. She had come home late from work, exhausted, when she heard her name from the kitchen. "She doesn't realize all her help was voluntary," her mother said. "The deed's in our names only." Her father chuckled, that same low, confident laugh that used to make her feel safe. "Classic Aria," he said. "All heart, no business sense." And then Lila's voice, small and uncertain. "But won't she expect something?" "Expect what?" her mother scoffed. "She gave gifts. Gifts don't buy ownership." The words sliced through her like paper cuts. Thin, invisible but burning. Aria pressed her back against the wall, silent, numb. The house she had painted, repaired, and financed wasn't hers at all. That night she didn't cry. She sat at her desk and opened her laptop. "If they want business sense," she whispered, "they'll get it." For 6 months she lived a double life. By day, mild-mannered accountant. By night, investigator. Every receipt, every transfer, every home improvement purchase. She tracked it all. She built a digital trail so precise it could survive fire. Her father's arrogance was her secret weapon. He never hid his tracks. Help, temporary, his transfer notes read. She saved them all. By summer's end she had proof. $48,000 in mortgage payments, $22,000 in renovation supplies, $15,000 in utilities. All traced to her account. Add 13 years of unpaid labor and repairs worth tens of thousands more. Aria had turned betrayal into evidence. She met quietly with 3 attorneys, each confirming what she suspected. You have a solid claim, one told her. Equity isn't always on paper, it's in proof. She smiled. When her mother's message finally came, you don't have a home anymore, it wasn't a loss. It was the last puzzle piece. When Aria showed the message to her lawyer the next morning, he looked at her with quiet admiration. They sent this, he asked. She nodded. That text proves intent, he said. It's not just cruelty, it's evidence. Aria sipped her coffee, steady as stone. Then file the petition, she replied. Her lawyer's eyes flicked up in surprise. Are you sure? Absolutely, she said. They wanted to see how brave I am. Let's show them. That afternoon, he filed the paperwork that would turn years of emotional abuse into a legal reckoning. 2 days later, her parents' attorney called, voice tight with panic. Miss Lin, we have a situation. Could we discuss this privately? Aria almost laughed. Privately, she repeated. That's funny, considering you copied half the family on every guilt trip email. She didn't call back right away. She wanted them to sweat. For once, they'd feel the helpless waiting she'd lived with for years, waiting for love, approval, or fairness that never came. Now it was their turn to wait for her mercy, and she had none left to give. The confrontation happened the following week in a downtown mediation office. The air smelled like disinfectant and expensive coffee. A long table split the room like a border, her side their side. Her parents walked in first. Her father's face burned red with anger. Her mother wore pearls and a brittle smile. Lila trailed behind them, looking like she wished she could vanish. Aria didn't stand. She simply opened her file folder and pushed it across the table. What's this? Her father snapped. Proof, she said calmly. Her attorney unfolded the documents one by one, his tone professional and cold. This includes bank transfers, receipts, and communication records establishing Miss Lin's direct financial contributions toward the mortgage, renovations, and utilities of the Lin residence over a 14-year period. Each sheet landed on the table like a hammer. Mortgage transfers, $48,000. Renovation costs, $22,000. Utilities, $15,000. Labor valued at tens of thousands. This is ridiculous, her father barked. Those were gifts. Family helping family. Her lawyer adjusted his glasses. Then why did you write temporary help in your transfers? Her mother's composure cracked first. Aria, darling, you misunderstood. We never meant. Aria cut her off, her voice sharper than she'd intended. Never meant for me to find proof, never meant for me to understand what you were doing. Her mother blinked, speechless. You used my income, my labor, and my loyalty, Aria continued. You called it love. I call it fraud. Lila's lip trembled, whispering, Mom, Dad, is this true? They didn't answer. Their silence said enough. Her father slammed his hand on the table. After everything we did for you, housing, food, school, you repay us with a lawsuit? Aria's lawyer spoke before she could. Mr. Lin, parents are not entitled to steal from their adult children. These funds were transferred under false pretenses. Furthermore, your wife's message, you don't have a home anymore, constitutes malicious intent to deprive Miss Lin of her equitable interest. The room went still. Even her parents' attorney exhaled, defeated. This is bad, he muttered, flipping through the evidence. Her father looked ready to explode, his fists trembling. You're destroying this family, he shouted. Aria finally met his eyes. You destroyed it years ago when you made love conditional on obedience. Her voice didn't shake. For the first time he had no response. Her mother sobbed quietly, face buried in her manicured hands. Lila stared at them all, realizing the truth she'd been shielded from. The perfect family portrait was cracked beyond repair, and no apology could glue it back. When the mediation ended, her parents' lawyer tried to negotiate. Perhaps we can settle, avoid court publicity, he suggested. Aria leaned forward. You had years to be reasonable, she said. Now I'll take what I'm owed. 6 weeks later, the judge's signature turned her pain into a verdict. The ruling. Aria Lin was entitled to 50% ownership of the family home, based on documented contributions and labor. She stood outside the courthouse holding the papers, sunlight washing over her face. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, clean, final, and deserved. She didn't move back in. That house had been poisoned long before they changed the locks. The laughter inside had always been conditional, the warmth fake. Instead, she forced the sale. As a 50% owner, she had that right. They'll never agree, her lawyer warned. Then the court will, she replied. And it did. The house sold for $690,000. Her share, $345,000 after fees. Ironically, the improvements that raised the value were the very ones she'd paid for. Her family's greed had made her rich. Her parents' plans collapsed overnight. They had counted on the full sale to fund retirement. Instead, they were left with half, barely enough for a small condo in a neighborhood they once mocked. Aria didn't celebrate with champagne or revenge fantasies. She simply signed the closing papers, deposited her share, and bought a small townhouse on a quiet Portland street. No manipulation. No guilt. Just peace. Sometimes she'd stand by the window, coffee in hand, and smile. The locks they'd changed no longer mattered. She had her own now. Her new townhouse was modest but beautiful. Pale brick walls, a small garden with lavender by the door, and windows that caught the morning sun. The first night she slept there, she woke to silence. Not the tense quiet of her parents' home, but true peace. She brewed coffee in her own kitchen, sat barefoot by the window and smiled. Mine, she whispered, tasting the word like something sacred. No one could threaten her with eviction ever again. Every inch of this space carried her name, her effort, her freedom. A week after the sale closed, the messages started coming. Her father's first email was titled Ungrateful Daughter. She almost deleted it, but curiosity won. After everything we sacrificed for you, this is how you repay us. It read. She closed the message without replying. Hours later came another. This one from her mother. Family forgives Aria. You'll regret this when we're gone. The guilt in those words would have broken her once. Now, it only reminded her of why she'd left. Her phone buzzed again that evening, Lila this time. Can we talk? I had no idea about any of this. Maybe we can go to therapy together. Aria stared at the message for a long time, her thumb hovering over the reply button. She remembered Lila sitting at that kitchen table, nodding when her mother said, "She gave gifts." Lila had known enough. Aria turned off her phone. Some peace, she decided, required permanent silence. The following month, her lawyer called to check in. "You doing okay, Aria?" he asked gently. "Better than I've ever been," she replied truthfully. "Good," he said, "because they might try to appeal." Aria laughed softly. "They can waste their money if they want. I'm not scared anymore." There was pride in his voice when he said, "You should be. You handled this like a pro." Aria smiled. "Funny, isn't it? They used to call me naive. Turns out I was just learning." Her colleagues at the accounting firm began to notice a change in her. The quiet woman who used to eat lunch alone now spoke with confidence, even humor. When a coworker asked why she seemed lighter, Aria said, "I finally balanced a very long ledger." They laughed, not knowing how literal that was. Numbers had always been her shield. Now they were her sword. Each spreadsheet, each calculation she'd made had rebuilt her sense of power, one decimal at a time. One afternoon, while walking home, she passed a small family repairing a broken fence. The father held the board steady while the daughter hammered nails carefully, her mother cheering from the porch. Aria stopped, watching quietly. It wasn't envy she felt, it was relief. Families like that existed, but hers wasn't one of them. And that was okay. She'd stopped waiting for apologies. Some stories didn't end with reconciliation. Some ended with freedom, and that was enough. Still, there were nights when memories crept in. The smell of her mother's Sunday roast, the way her father used to hum when fixing the car, the laughter before the lies. Those moments used to hurt. Now they were lessons carved into her. Pain had become a language she could finally translate. Every scar told her where her boundaries were and how far she'd come. "You can't lose what never truly belonged to you," she whispered one night, sipping tea under the soft hum of her kitchen light. Her therapist once asked, "Do you think you'll ever forgive them?" Aria thought about it carefully. "Forgive," she repeated. "Maybe someday. But I don't think forgiveness means reunion. It just means peace inside me, not permission for them to come back." The therapist smiled. "That's a powerful difference." Aria nodded. "They wanted control. What I want is closure." Every session after that, she felt lighter, as if shedding invisible weights she'd carried since childhood months past, and Aria's townhouse became a reflection of who she really was. Books lined the shelves, a soft blue rug covered the floor, and fresh flowers sat in glass jars on her kitchen counter. She invited friends from work for dinner one night, something she'd never dared before. Laughter filled the small space, warm and genuine. When one of them asked, "So, is this where you grew up?" she smiled and said, "No. This is where I finally started living." On her 29th birthday, she received one final letter, handwritten, from her father. The envelope was neat, the handwriting shaky. She hesitated before opening it. "We sold the condo. Things are hard. We just want to talk." For a brief second, the old instinct flickered, to fix, to help, to save. Then she folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. "I already did talk," she murmured. "The court spoke for me." And with that, she lit a candle, sliced her birthday cake, and made a wish for continued peace. Spring came early that year. The cherry blossoms in her street bloomed before April, scattering soft pink petals across her walkway. Aria often paused on her porch to admire them before leaving for work. Each morning felt like a small victory, a quiet affirmation that life had moved forward. Her neighbors waved when they saw her. "Morning, Miss Lin," they'd call. She'd wave back, smiling. For the first time, she was part of a community that didn't require sacrifice to belong. She was simply accepted. One Saturday morning, while cleaning out her storage boxes, Aria found the old house key. The one that no longer fit any door she cared about. She held it between her fingers for a moment, remembering how many times she'd turned it, hoping it meant home. Now it was just metal, a reminder of lessons learned. She set it on the table, then dropped it into a small glass jar labeled "Things I've Outgrown." The sound it made, sharp, final, was strangely satisfying. Her career blossomed quietly after the lawsuit. Promotions came faster, clients trusted her judgment, and her boss often sought her input during board meetings. "You have a rare kind of confidence," he said one day. Aria smiled. "It was expensive," she replied softly. The room chuckled, not knowing how true that was. She'd paid for that confidence with years of silence, but now her voice carried authority. People listened when she spoke, not out of obligation but respect. She began volunteering at a local women's legal aid center, helping others document financial abuse. Most of the women she met had stories like hers, family members who took advantage of their trust. "Paperwork is power," she told them. "Keep your receipts. Keep your records. One day they'll save you." When one woman whispered, "I thought I was the only one," Aria smiled gently. "You're not. You're just the first one brave enough to fight." Her pain had become purpose. Sometimes late at night, she would reread her old journal entries, pages filled with exhaustion and confusion. "Maybe I'm the problem," one line said. Another read. They love Lila more, and maybe that's okay. Aria closed the book slowly and whispered to her younger self. You were never the problem. You were the backbone. She slid the journal back into the drawer, not out of shame but gratitude. Every word was proof of how far she'd come from that frightened girl. One evening, she received an unexpected call from an unknown number. Out of habit, she almost declined, but curiosity won. Hello, she said cautiously. A shaky voice replied. It's Mom. The room went still. I know you don't want to talk, her mother continued. But we lost everything. Your father's sick, and I don't know what to do. Aria's grip tightened on the phone. She closed her eyes, memories flashing like lightning. I'm sorry to hear that, she said evenly. But I can't help you. Then she ended the call. Her hands trembled afterward, not from guilt, but from the shock of standing firm. Years ago, she would have rushed to help, emptied her savings, sacrificed herself again. Not this time. Boundaries aren't cruelty, she whispered to herself. They were survival. The tears that came weren't for her parents. They were for the version of herself who'd never known how to say no. When she finally stopped crying, she felt lighter, freer, like she'd closed the last open door to her past. Days later, a small envelope arrived. No return address, just her name written in uneven ink. Inside was a photo, her old family home now empty, the yard overgrown, the windows boarded. On the back, her father had written one line. You win. Aria stared at it for a long time before placing it in her journal. No, she murmured softly. I just survived. Then she closed the book for good. The house that once defined her no longer had power over her life. Aria's townhouse became her sanctuary for growth. She painted the walls a calm sea green, filled her shelves with travel books, and started baking again, something she hadn't done since childhood. Friends came over on weekends, and laughter echoed through rooms that once knew only solitude. Sometimes they'd tease her. You never stop working, do you? She'd grin. I work for peace now, not approval. And they'd raise their glasses in quiet understanding. One crisp autumn evening, she hosted a dinner on her patio, fairy lights glowing overhead. As everyone laughed and shared stories, her friend Maya leaned over and asked, Do your parents know how successful you've become? Aria smiled faintly. They knew who I was. They just never cared to see it. Maya nodded. Their loss. Aria lifted her glass. Exactly. For the first time, she wasn't celebrating escape or victory. She was celebrating peace, the kind that no one could take away. A few weeks later, Aria received an invitation to her sister's wedding. The envelope was ivory with gold trimming, the kind her mother used to adore. She turned it over, scanning the neatly printed names. Lila Lin and Oliver Rhodes. There was a short note inside. I'd really like you to come. No one else will walk me down the aisle. Aria read it twice, feeling a strange ache. She remembered the little sister who used to follow her around the yard, clutching her hand. Then she remembered the kitchen conversation, the silence that cut her out. On the day of the wedding, she didn't go. She sent a handwritten card instead. I wish you happiness, but I can't be part of a story that hurt me to build yours. She sealed it, mailed it, and then took herself out for brunch. Sitting by the window of a small cafe, she ordered pancakes and coffee, smiling when the waiter asked if she was celebrating something. Yes, she said softly. I'm celebrating boundaries. The words tasted like freedom. Months turned into a year. The noise of her past faded into the distance. Her townhouse was thriving with life. Plants she once couldn't keep alive now flourished under her care. Turns out I wasn't bad at nurturing, she joked to a friend one afternoon. I just needed the right soil. Her friend laughed, and Aria laughed too, a sound that once came out cautiously but now rolled easily from her chest. Healing wasn't sudden. It was steady, like breathing after a long dive. By her 30th birthday, she had built something extraordinary. Her work at the Legal Aid Center grew into a statewide program that taught young women financial independence. Local news stations began covering her workshops, calling her the accountant who fought back. During one interview, the host asked, "What made you so determined?" Aria smiled into the camera. "Pain taught me persistence," she said. "And persistence became my revenge." Viewers across Oregon cheered her story, but for her, the real triumph was peace. Late one night after a long seminar, Aria sat alone at her desk, reviewing forms. The city lights shimmered through her window, and a quiet hum filled the air. She picked up her pen and scribbled a note to herself. Never apologize for surviving. It wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. She folded the note and tucked it into her wallet, right behind her driver's license so it would travel with her everywhere, a soft reminder that her worth was never theirs to measure again. Sometimes she'd still dream of the old house. In those dreams, she'd walk through empty halls, hearing echoes of laughter that no longer belonged to her. But when she opened the front door, sunlight would flood in, washing everything clean. She'd step out barefoot into her new garden. Every time she woke, she'd feel a calm smile form on her lips. The dreams no longer haunted her. They released her. They were her mind's way of saying goodbye. One afternoon, she got an email from a former client at the legal center. "You don't know how much you changed my life," it read. "Because of you, I stood up to my brother and got my inheritance back." Aria felt tears sting her eyes, but this time they were the good kind, the kind that carried pride, not pain. She replied simply, "You did that yourself. I just helped you see you could." She pressed send and sat quietly for a moment, grateful. Her evenings became her favorite part of life. She'd cook simple meals, light candles, and play old jazz records. Sometimes she'd narrate her own story out loud, laughing at how cinematic it all sounded. "Once upon a time," she'd joke, "a family tried to break a daughter, but she turned their cruelty into documentation." It always made her chuckle. Life, she'd learned, had a funny way of rewarding those who learned to fight with intelligence instead of rage. One summer morning, she walked through the park, notebook in hand, jotting down ideas for her first book, Inheritance of Strength. It wasn't about revenge but about reclaiming voice and worth. She wanted to write it for people who felt small, for those still trapped in families that thrived on guilt. As she sat under a maple tree, she whispered, "May this help someone find their way out sooner than I did." The wind lifted her hair, almost like an answer. Years later, people would still tell her, "Your story changed me." But Aria always smiled humbly and said, "It wasn't just my story, it's many people's story. I just decided to write mine down." And every time she passed the mirror in her bright little townhouse, she'd pause, not to check her reflection, but to nod at the woman who refused to stay broken. The locks they changed no longer mattered. She had built a life that no key could ever shut her out of again.